do you park when you go there?
Well, it depends. During volleyball season, if I get there early enough, I can park in the main memorial lot and walk in. Plus, I know a couple of people that might give me a rich people spot if I get there early enough.
That's
Um,
always nice.
but for basketball season, we have a pass to park in on Linden Walk, a couple blocks up in that parking lot.
Hmm.
Here, I've parked in the, the Lextran above the Lextran,
Yeah,
and there's a shuttle bus that runs.
Oh,
really?
oh, that's
Okay, I didn't
cool.
know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, Daryl.
Well, there's Daryl Ishmael. I don't think I've laid eyes on that guy, and I believe Moses was a baby the last time I saw that guy.
Well, he's still here. I'm sorry.
We're very blessed that you are, Daryl.
Well, thank you very
Absolutely.
much. I'm blessed to see you all.
Of course, I haven't been in person in 3 years. There's probably half our membership that I don't even haven't even met in person.
That is a problem.
Indeed.
I was actually going through some stuff at Mom's, and I found a handwritten joke in Dad's handwriting, and it's
No.
about Dean Hammond.
I
So I'm going to bring it to you when I come next time.
told you my favorite joke that I ever told about your father was I said the only reason he joined the Rotary Club was because he thought it was a an opportunity to network with other people that use the same kind of phone.
So true. So true.
Welcome to the January 25th edition
I'll
of
mute
the
everybody
Rotary
now.
Club of Lexington meeting, here with our inspiration, Ken Heisel.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, let's do the pledge and Rotary test first.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test. Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? This week has been a busy one in our nation. We observed the peaceful transition of the office of the presidency from Joe Biden to Donald Trump, and an event watched by millions of Americans. We also observed on Monday a national holiday to celebrate the life and accomplishments of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In Lexington and all over the country, there were marches, speeches, and remembrances of Dr. King and those who championed civil rights for all Americans. Several Rotarians braved Arctic conditions to march in the parade here in Lexington, and we should thank them for representing our club. Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech was delivered from the Lincoln Memorial on August 28th, 1963, before 250,000 people on the National Mall. The speech was the 16th of 18 delivered that day and has been viewed by historians and scholars of public address as to being the top-ranked speech of the 20th century. It was delivered 100 years from the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. We have come far since Dr. King spoke those words, but we still have far to go. In 1964, Dr. King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And in 1977, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom 9 years after his death. I am certainly no orator, and I cannot begin to deliver Dr. King's famous speech. I suggest that you take time and read Dr. King's words. They are as powerful today as they were 62 years ago.
Thank you, Kent. Today's guests, Scott, if you would.
All right, we've got several guests with us today, and I would ask that when I call your name, if you'll just please stand up, and we'll give you a recognition. Hold your applause until everybody's been introduced, because we've got quite a list here. First of all, Abby Woodcock. Abby, where are you? Right back here in the middle. She's a guest of John Kilder. Sean Barkley. Sean Barkley's right over here, a guest of Lyle Hanna. Cassie Klein is a guest of Buzz Carmichael. Right back there in the back. Carrie Anderson, right back here. Carrie is the guest of Brett Anderson. Russ Johns is the guest of Jaron Johns. Malia Schmidt is the guest of Laurel Martin. Here's Malia. Andrea Bryan is the guest of Susie Basham, right back there. Jeff Baker is the guest of Sarah Diener, right back there. Yeah. Cole Meyer is the guest of Marcus, right back there. And Caleb Green is the guest of Franklin Thompson, right up here. And Henry Johnson is the guest of Sean Lyons. Where's it? Right back there. Let's give them all a rock.
Thank you very much, Scott. Time for the lottery. Tom Lester. And how much are we working with today? $626. I'm going to pull two, and we're looking for the Jack of Hearts. First number, last four digits, 4446. 4446. Do we have a bingo? 4446. We do. Jeff Caro. And while Jeff makes his way up, in the event we need a second one, 4427. 4427. All right, Jack of Hearts. Oh, close but no cigar. Thank you for playing, Jeff. And Franklin Thompson. What do you got there, Franklin? Pulling that Jack of Hearts close. Two of clubs. It's a card. Thank you, Tom Lester. Franklin, Susan Adams, and Jerry Vandermeer and I were the ones braving the cold this last Monday for the Martin Luther King March. Thank you all for coming out. It was really, really great. Franklin made it after he was donating his time for Meals on Wheels. Way to go, Franklin. Okay, we've got 20 people celebrating birthdays. I'm going to run through this list, and at the end, we'll sing the last line of the birthday song. Bridget Blom, Guy Bradley, John Collins, Sayer Combs, Bill Craycraft, Dan Dorsett, Lloyd Elliott, Kimberly Hammond, Chris Hickey, Kay Hughes, Steve Keller, Julie Kwasniewski, Graham Marks, Harry Rickard, Michelle Ripley, John Shaw, Michael Stutland, Don Thorpe, Gary Toohey, and Kevin Weaver. Let's give a happy birthday to you on three. Happy birthday to you. All right. Now, don't forget to donate to the birthday club for each year you've been alive. A special note of thanks to our fifth page in the Wheel Horse is there. There's some amazing notes. The team that does the Wheel Horse is amazing. And Jim Host is recognized as this month's living legend. Further on for announcements, tomorrow morning, our early morning mixer from 8 to 9:30 at the Lexington Green 46 Solutions, the area's best networking event takes place. Please show up. Next week for our fifth week community service project, we're unpacking and sorting books at the International Book Project starting at 11:30 to 1:30. Contact Alicia Chafin. Where's that going to be located? Where are we going to be doing that? 11:30.
Delaware Avenue.
What is it? Tell me again.
Delaware Avenue.
Delaware Avenue. No, Delaware Avenue, 11:30. International Book Project off Delaware Avenue next week for our community service. Also next week on the 5th Thursday is trivia night. Last time we did this, we sold out. It is at Columbia Steakhouse. It's $5 to attend. There is dinner available for $22 for a buffet, or you can go off menu. It's a great time, and I encourage you all to attend. Now for this week's election results, our president-elect, Laurel Martin.
Good afternoon, you all. On the tables, you will see our board of directors and our for who will be serving for the next year. A club like this does not work without service-minded individuals, and that service always starts at home. Thank you to everyone who offered to serve. Thank you for everything that you all do to make this club work, and I look forward to working with each one of you next year.
Thank you, Laurel, and a round of applause to the incoming leadership for the Rotary Club of Lexington. Is Paul Stanley in the house? Paul Stanley in the house. I do not see Paul. Oh, there you are, Paul. Paul Stanley to discuss the Rotary Foundation. Paul accepted this responsibility to lead the foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Stanley.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. This is the first time I've been up here representing the Rotary International Foundation. And I'm here to present a Paul Harris Fellow to a special member today. But before we start, I'd like to recognize all the Paul Harris Fellows that we have here today. So would you stand if you're a Paul Harris Fellow or above? Yeah, that's tremendous. We have a number of people who have given to the Rotary International Foundation. A Paul Harris Fellow recognition, which I'm going to give today, is reserved for those who value our Rotary International Foundation as an organization that provides hope, health, and peace throughout the world. Today, we are honoring an individual who embodies Rotary's principal values, and that's Mr. Brett Anderson. Brett, you want to stand up while I'm talking about you? Yes. I appreciate it. And Carrie. Where's Carrie, his wife? There you are. Oh, thanks for standing up. Want to recognize you too.
Just put that anywhere, Bill.
The Paul Harris distinction celebrates Brett's exceptional dedication to service and fostering goodwill. He grew up in the culturally rich south suburbs of Chicago. Brett developed a lifelong appreciation for diversity and connection, from spanning cliques in high school to building friendships with international peers in college. Brett's ability to connect across backgrounds is a hallmark of his life. He's been here in Lexington for 20 years, and he's the president of Cohesion LLC. It's a Lexington-based business development firm. Under his leadership, Cohesion has been a generous supporter of many local causes, including Dancing with the Stars, which has raised tens of thousands of dollars. And at the same time, he's having fun dancing alongside his family. So on behalf of the club, the district, and our Rotary International Foundation, I applaud you for all you do and welcome you to receive your Paul Harris certificate and pin. So with that, I would like to give you, you do have one pin. I'd like to replace that with a Paul Harris Fellow pin. If I can get it apart.
Very good.
Thank you. And then also with a certificate. Recognizing Brett as the newest Paul Harris Fellow.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So again, I wanted to thank Brett for all he's done, for the lives he's touched, and for the lives he's about to touch in his career in caring about other people. So thank you for that applause. Please give him another applause for embodying service above self. Thank you again.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you all. It's exciting and, but really, and right on time. I'd like to introduce Don to introduce our speaker.
Mr. President, I would ask you, allow me just one moment. We've had thousands of our friends and neighbors on the West Coast lose everything they had in the fires in California. I would ask that as you pray tonight, today, at your respective synagogue, church, or wherever it is, to pray for those individuals, because you can imagine waking up one moment and everything you've had all your life is gone. So please pray for these folks, keep them in your prayers, give as you can. Now I'll do what you asked me to do. Our speaker today is Laura Soldato. She is Executive Director of the Blue Cross Parkinson's Alliance. Laura has served in this role since October of 2019. Is that better? Navigating the fulfillment of BPA's mission to create a community of hope and encouragement by providing resources and support service to those. Is that all right?
You're so electric, Don.
I'm sorry. I started doing the providing resources and support services to those affected by Parkinson's disease. Laura oversees event planning, fundraising, and grant writing for the Bluegrass Parkinson's Alliance. Before serving as Executive Director, Laura was the Director of Development for Mary Queen of the Holy Rosary School before entering development and marketing. Laura taught in high school, both in Chicago and Oklahoma City. She earned her BA in Government and Journalism in 2002 and her master's degree in 2024, both from the University of Notre Dame. She grew up in Winchester, Kentucky, and graduated from Lexington Catholic High School. Because Kentucky is her home to more than 11,000 Parkinson's patients, the Bluegrass Parkinson's Alliance has a large task ahead of it in fulfilling its mission. The most difficult part is simply finding those newly diagnosed and encouraging them to use the free resources and educational seminars BPA provides. Laura loves interacting with BPA members to learn how to best serve the Parkinson's community in Kentucky. Laura's presentation will not only educate about the Parkinson's disease, but also what BPA does to help members show the progress of their disease. I give you Laura.
Hi, everyone, and thank you. I want to thank Laurel and Brett for having me here today. I appreciate the invitation to come. One of our members actually is a member of the After Hours Club, so I spoke to them this past fall in 2024, and they said, well, this would actually be a great presentation for the bigger club because of our mission and our focus on health and disease prevention. So I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you for giving me this forum to talk to you. So I think Dawn just gave you pretty much my introduction, but I did grow up in Kentucky and Winchester, and I graduated from Lexington Catholic with Carrie, one of your members. So after that, I went to the University of Notre Dame and earned my bachelor's degree and my master's degree in education. So while someone was telling about all the events of the week, for me, Monday night was a little bit depressing. But there was a lot else going on Monday to take off my attention. So I then taught high school in Oklahoma City and in Chicagoland for 10 years before moving back to Kentucky in 2011. And that's when my work in development really started. In 2019, I became the executive director of the Bluegrass Parkinson's Alliance. And that's when my education on Parkinson's disease started. So what is Parkinson's disease? So you could read the basic definition here. Parkinson's disease is a progressive neurological disease characterized by the loss of dopamine producing neurons in specific regions of the brain. So all of us, if we are of normal health, our body produces dopamine. There's things you can do to increase your dopamine production. So you could exercise, being out in fresh air or in sunlight can increase your dopamine production. But for someone with Parkinson's disease, there's a deficit. They don't produce dopamine the way that we do. Now, for decades, there has been a drug, it's called carbidopa-levodopa, that basically is synthetic dopamine that is given to people with Parkinson's disease. So it can replace some of that dopamine that they're lacking. But because they can't produce it naturally, they're still going to have symptoms because of the lack of dopamine. So there are two types of symptoms that someone with Parkinson's disease is going to have. They're going to have motor symptoms and non-motor symptoms. Now, again, when I took this position 5 years ago, all I really understood was motor symptoms. So I think of the tremor. So if you know someone with Parkinson's disease, you might notice that their leg shakes or their hand shakes or part of their body shakes. Now, it's kind of interesting, since being in this position, only 70 to 80% of people, that's their main symptom. So we still have about a third of people with Parkinson's disease that don't even have a tremor in the span of the time that they have the disease. So there's other motor symptoms that sort of become very prevalent as well. So slowed movement. Okay, so when you and I go into a room, we know where our desired destination is. We get up from our chair, we walk over, and we go to wherever we're going, be that to turn on the TV, to get something out of the fridge, whatever. Someone with Parkinson's disease, a lot of times they will stand up, they'll sort of freeze, and then their brain is saying, walk over to the refrigerator, but their body isn't doing it because they're lacking that dopamine. So that sort of slowed movement, the freezing, is another symptom of Parkinson's disease. They also have stiffness and rigidity. So all of us, like if you've had a good workout, you'll maybe wake up the next morning and you'll feel stiff. That's not what I'm talking about. This is like you literally physically can't move your arms and legs the way that you used to. Again, we don't realize how much dopamine affects both our mental state, but also like physically how we operate. The other thing that you'll notice in Parkinson's patients is posture instability. So we, hopefully if we're practicing our yoga, or I have a ballerina that's a daughter, she's always standing up very straight and tall. But someone with Parkinson's disease, they don't mean to, but you'll see them and they'll be bent over. So that's another sign, a motor symptom that happens from the loss of this dopamine. In my job, actually, these non-motor symptoms are much harder for people to deal with, and also harder for care partners to deal with. So someone with Parkinson's disease is much more likely to have anxiety and depression. They also are much more like, they become apathetic. So things that they used to want to engage in and be part of, they no longer have that desire. And again, that's an effect of a lack of dopamine. They also suffer from fatigue. Now, again, some of us might be tired from our jobs or our family life, but this is overwhelming tiredness. So this is, I can't get out of bed. I sit in a chair and I fall asleep instantly. So again, this just prevents them from operating in life the way that we normally do. There's also impulse control that happens with Parkinson's disease. So sometimes we see people that get into gambling. So that's another sort of non-motor symptom. And then the slowness of thought is one. The cognitive deficit is what I've really, as an organization, we've tried to look at more and more the last 2 and 3 years. So we have a lady that comes and talks to our membership who has had PD. She had early onset. So she was diagnosed when she was 39 years old. So she's had it for 20 years. And she said the most frustrating thing is her slowness of thought. So she said, you know, her and her husband used to banter back and forth. She had a really quick wit. And then all of a sudden, with this Parkinson's disease progressing, she knows what she wants to say, but it's just not there. And so these sort of non-motor symptoms are difficult for people with Parkinson's, but also for their care partners. The person that they've known, they've been married to for 20 years is different. So this is where we come into play. So we are the Bluegrass Parkinson's Alliance, and our mission, as you can read up here, the mission of the Bluegrass Parkinson's Alliance is to create a community of hope and encouragement by providing resources and support services to those affected by Parkinson's disease. So how do we do that? If any of you have had to care for or your own self have been a patient for any sort of disease, you know that being an advocate for yourself is often critical into getting the best care. So the more that you are aware of, be it cancer treatments or MS, whatever, if you can educate yourself and go to your doctor with information, you're probably, I hate to say it, but the squeaky wheel often gets the attention. And so we really try to be that for our membership. We try to become an educational hub. So we bring in neurologists and movement disorder specialists from all across the country. Last year, we had one speak from Florida, from California, from Ohio. We're really lucky because here in Lexington at the University of Kentucky, we actually have 5 different movement disorder specialists. So these are people that got their MD, then they went on to get a fellowship in neurology. And then beyond that, they went on to get a fellowship in movement disorders. So they're really, really educated. They're on the cutting edge of care for people with movement disorders. And they come and speak to our membership. So again, if people can be given information like how could diet help? How could exercise help? How does your sleep hygiene affect your Parkinson's disease? And then on top of that, there's a lot of great new medications and research and procedures that can be done to help as well. So we bring in medical professionals, same sort of thing, our yearly symposium. We have medical professionals that come in and work with our membership. And then we have these quarterly classes as well. Beyond that, the support groups that we host are sort of the bread and butter of our organization. So, and we were talking about social engagement, and all of you all being here today, you probably don't even realize how important this is for your mental health. And for someone with Parkinson's disease who often socially isolate and don't want to engage anymore because they're embarrassed of their tremor or their posture instability or whatever it might be, it's so important for us to try to get them to engage again. And so we have support groups. We have a daytime one, and then we have a nighttime one because a lot of times people are still working. And so we want to provide that opportunity. And then for our care partners. So again, they're the people that it's, you know, they've seen their partner go through this and struggle with this, and they just like to meet with other care partners to say, I'm not alone. Other people are going through this. We can do this. You know, it's going to be okay. And so I think these support groups, people share like how much cinnamon are you on? What's your exercise regimen? And they really encourage each other. They're not depressing. I thought when I took this job, oh my gosh, this sounds depressing, but it's not. The other major thing that we spend most of our funding on are our therapy and exercise classes. So with Parkinson's disease, one of the main things that can slow the progression of the disease are being regularly in therapy and in exercise classes. So I wrote a grant a couple of years ago from the Parkinson's Foundation for our music therapy classes. If you don't know anything about music therapy, it's awesome. We have a therapeutic singing group, which is basically like a chorus, but they come in and they go through vocal exercises, but then they also sing songs. So here's another thing that happens in Parkinson's disease. You often lose your voice. So that means that your vocal cords get weaker, you begin mumbling, you cannot talk as loud. So, and really for all of us, if you sing in the car and you belt out things, it's really good for your lungs and it's good for to keep a good, strong voice. So we once a week host a therapeutic singing group. We also have a harmonica class, which we started 2 years ago. And again, this was something nobody in our group knew how to play the harmonica, but it's learning a new task is good for your brain. And also, if you're playing the harmonica, again, you're working on your breathing, you're strengthening your vocal cords. A lot of times someone with Parkinson's disease, pneumonia can be deadly because they can't cough the way that we could maybe. So all of these classes can really help with that. And we also offer a Drums Alive class, which Drums Alive is not just for people with Parkinson's disease, but you can see here. So it's an exercise ball and then either drumsticks or sometimes pool noodles. But these, you're using the right side and the left side of your brain. You're tapping to a beat. You have to remember sequences. I mean, when I go in there, I'm like, how did you all just remember to do, 4 counts here, 8 counts here, so it's really good for their brain, but it's also physical therapy as well. And then you can see the harmonica basics class. And then as I sort of touched on back here, so the loud crowd speech therapy, this is another one that's really hard with the care partners because they can no longer hear the Parkinson's patient because they mumble. I had a friend whose mom passed away from Parkinson's, and she said it was so hard because I could no longer talk to her on the phone because she just mumbled. And so the only way she could communicate with her is if she went to see her in person. And so this is another, it's offered every single week, completely free of charge, where people can get this speech therapy, which really works on their voice and volume. The other thing, and we've had several of these movement disorder specialists come in and say, exercise is the only thing that can slow the progression of Parkinson's disease. So regular aerobic exercise where you are getting your heart rate up is the only thing where your disease it's going to always progress. It's a progressive disease. There's nothing that yet science has found to stop that. But if you can exercise regularly, and we have a lot of people that do, and I will tell you, they've had Parkinson's for 15 years. They still drive themselves to our exercise classes. They're still very engaged. It is not a death sentence, but maybe it requires lifestyle changes. So we do offer 4 different exercise classes every week, again, completely free. Our Power for PD and Parkinson's exercise program are group exercise classes. So they are led by physical therapists who have special training in working with Parkinson's disease patients. So there's 2 different programs of physical therapy. It's called Power and Big that are designed specifically to help people with Parkinson's. And so they lead them through exercises that are from those 2 different programs. Tai Chi is another one. So that's a mixed martial arts, works on breathing and balance. We offer that every single week. Again, studies show it's really good for someone with Parkinson's. And then finally, and you all may have heard of this, I don't know, I feel like there's been some 60 Minutes on it or other like news segments, but Rock Steady Boxing is a national program. So it's been proven that they don't box like in a ring against each other, but you can see here they're working with bags. But it is a program, we offer scholarships. It's offered at a gym here in Lexington. But again, someone with Parkinson's, they can go Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday and take these Rock Steady Boxing classes. You're using the left side, right side of your brain. There's step movements involved, and all of that can really help. I had a care partner tell me once, like she was so thankful for the scholarship because her husband literally couldn't get out of bed, couldn't dress himself. He started regularly doing that. And 6 weeks later, she was like, he could get up, he could get dressed, he could get downstairs. And so I think like, I love hearing stories like that because it depends on your reaction to your Parkinson's disease diagnosis on which way you're going to go. And if you're willing to do physical therapy or exercise, maybe the Mediterranean diet, then it doesn't have to change your life. You can still lead a very fulfilling life. So, oh, and these are our other group exercise classes. That's Tai Chi, and that's our Power for PD. So if you want to scan the QR code, you can see our website. Again, I'm just so happy to be here today because the main thing that I have a hard time doing is getting the word out that we exist. And chances are there are 11,000 Parkinson's patients in Kentucky. So chances are you might know a neighbor or a friend or a family member that has it. And if you can send them to our website, they can get in contact with us. Everything that I've talked about today, they can come participate in and do that free of charge. So we really want to be sort of the center of Parkinson's, the way UK is for the medical care, we want to be it for the social and emotional well-being and health. So does anybody have questions? Yes. Yes, okay, so one of the ones that just got FDA approved is almost like a pump that you would see for, how people now can do that for if they're diabetic. And so that has helped a lot of our members because before there would be time, like off time, basically, their medicine lasts and then they dive and then, and so that just gives them this sentiment when they need it. So that's a good one. Actually here, UK again is cutting edge. So Dr. Van Horn, who's over at the University of Kentucky, does the deep brain stimulation. So that's DBS, similar to a pacemaker, like for a heart. They go in, they put things in your brain and they see which parts of your brain are affected by the PD, and then they're stimulating it. So we've had several members that do that that have done that as well, which is really cutting edge. The other thing that's sort of come out in Norton and Louisville, has this, and they have a couple movement disorder specialists that are awesome as well. They now have a skin test for it, so they can find out way sooner that you actually have Parkinson's disease. Before it was, we'll put you on carbidopa, levodopa. If it works, that means you have it. If it doesn't work, you don't have it. So it's been very hard to diagnose. But if they can diagnose earlier, and then you can be on plans like this, you could not have debilitating symptoms for decades. Do you know what I'm saying? But the problem is by the time it's diagnosed and by the time they get help, it's so far gone, so yeah. Yes. We do. Yes. So the Parkinson's Foundation, we really partner with them. In fact, they have a symposium coming up March 1st here in Lexington, and then our moving day is in April. I'm a big believer in that nonprofits should work together, that they have a lot more resources because they're a national organization and we are just local. So we always get a team together for it. And I really try to market it to our membership, but also to outside people. Yes, I believe. So moving day is a walk that Parkinson's Foundation has them across the country in April, because April is Parkinson's Awareness Month. And they, raise money for the Parkinson's Foundation. They do, as long as they agree to my grant. So it's been a little frustrating, but such is the life in nonprofits that I've been here 5 years. 4 of those 5 years I've gotten grants. So, and it is a lot of times hard to explain to our membership that they also they have more money. So they're sending out cards, to all our membership, and they think they're giving to us, but they're giving to the national organization, which is fine. Look, we all can work together, but they do, as long as we keep getting the grants, I'm fine with fundraising for them as well. Yes. So we were talking about this. A lot of the most recent research shows that it's probably gut health, but it's both genetic and environmental factors. So if, like, let's say your dad has Parkinson's, you're not that much more likely. I think it's like 0.08% or something to actually have it yourself. So there is some genetic to it, but a lot of times what we find is, like, one of our members lived in Ohio, was on well water his whole life. And so him and like 2 of his brothers have it. So that exposure to whatever it was in the well water probably caused the gut health. So unfortunately, there's not necessarily a way to prevent it. But the more we learn about how it's starting, we probably could delay its onset, so yes. There are different types of Parkinson's disease, and a lot of them are called Parkinsonisms. And so it's hard. And I know, like, George H.W. Bush, he had Parkinsonism. So it was caused by lots of mini strokes. But again, it all went back to then his brain wasn't producing dopamine. So there are different types. There's one called PSP and MSA. I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to talk too much on them, but there are different types that sort of progress at different levels. So most of our membership are just the basic Parkinson's disease, because the MSA and the PSP really, it's much worse as far as the progression. Yes.
Is there an average age, or?
Usually it's 65 to 70. So most of our membership is actually probably 70 to 80 years old. Yes. The progression of it. So the main ones that, and a lot of our sponsors our pharmaceutical reps. And so the main medicines that are coming in now are rescue drugs. So until this point, people have just taken their carbidopa, levodopa, like whenever, like every 4 hours or every 6 hours, depending on where they are in the disease. Now they actually have like an inhaler, or you could give yourself a shot where it puts the dopamine right into your system. So let's say that you want to go to your granddaughter's graduation and you want to make sure you're okay for the 3 hours you're at the graduation. You could use one of those rescue drugs. So those are kind of the newer ones that I've seen. There isn't necessarily anything. And again, this pump that is going to give you continuous flow, I mean, I can't tell you dyskinesia. If you've seen Michael J. Fox, like his sort of those like rapid movements, that's called dyskinesia. And we had a member who was, I mean, it was awful. And he's now on that pump and he looks like a different human being. So, I mean, I do think that things like that just allow people to live life in the normal way. Yes.
Are you noticing any trends? Is it increasing or what in general population?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's kind of like dementia. There is an increase in diagnosis, but we don't know if that's just because we're getting better at, the diagnosis and not necessarily that there's an actual increase in it. Or is it just that we know what we're looking for now? So there are more Parkinson's patients than there were a decade ago or 2 decades ago, but I don't know if that's just because we're diagnosing it. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I believe. I'm sorry, I should know that, and I don't. But I'm going to look it up after this meeting.
Any other questions?
Can you elaborate a bit on the diet thing?
Yes. So, and again, these Dr. Gaduru, who's at the University of Kentucky, did a whole presentation for us on the gut health. And it's kind of, there's been research on probiotics and whether or not you should start taking that once you have Parkinson's or even before. And his whole thing is always like, well, what can it hurt? And so he's on it, the Mediterranean diet is what they recommend. A lot of times, carbidopa, levodopa has a hard time being digested. So you don't want to eat it with a ton of protein. So Parkinson's patients need to make sure that they have a high fiber diet and drink a lot of water. But yeah, as far as like prevention and gut health, it's everything that we're all told to do. Your diet needs to be rainbow colored. You need to exercise regularly, limit red meat, all that kind of stuff that we should, fish and vegetables, that kind of thing is what we should be doing. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. Thank you much. Yeah, raise your hand if you learned something new today. Really informative. And on behalf of the Rotary Club of Lexington and our very own Bill Strauss, a lithograph thank you for telling us today. And yeah, did I do it right, Bill? Thank you. And we'll look forward to, we've got lots to do next week. Hope to see you. Appreciate you all coming today. Thanks for zooming in. And last but not least, we lost a member of the Rotary Club of Lexington. Sim was a dear, dear friend to many of us, and just keep him and his family in our thoughts and prayers. We are dismissed.
Thank you.